everyone, and welcome to the Hunt Museum today for the launch of Insula Sacra, the life of Limerick's Sylvester O'Halloran, written by Jack Hogan. And I believe we owe Jack a great debt of gratitude for writing this book and bringing light to someone who has, for the most part, been forgotten by many people in Limerick. It took Jack over 10 years to write Insula Sacra, the title of which means Sacred Island, and I'm sure the book will provide pivotal reference for future historians, as it contains a wealth of historical data, as well as creating, through the use of imagination and novel form, the flesh and blood of O'Halloran. And the Limerick Writers Centre is delighted to publish this important book. I'd like to welcome Dominic Taylor from the Limerick Writers Centre to say a few words now.
Thanks for being here, Tommy. I'd just like to say something about the work of the Limerick Writers Centre and the importance of supporting a culture of community writing in Limerick. Writing which includes poetry, memoir, short story, and novels as an important form of self-expression. I'm especially pleased that the Limerick Writers Centre is publishing today Insula Sacra by Jack Hogan. It was Jack and his writers group, Scribblers, that first gave me some acknowledgement when I first began writing. So to be here today to repay that initial encouragement is a great honour. Today we live in a world dominated by large commercial publishers, where in the United States, for instance, the top 20 publishers control 90% of book sales. And these publishers are not run by literary editors, but by marketing people. We at the Limerick Writers Centre believe that writing and publishing is for everyone. At the Limerick Writers Centre, we share a belief that writing and publishing should be made both available and accessible to all. We try as much as possible to represent diverse voices and to advocate for increased writing and publishing access to individuals and groups that have typically not had this access. We promote writing done by ordinary people, people who maybe are not trained writers and may struggle to get their ideas down on paper. We value difference, and we welcome people who may lack confidence in themselves and their writing ability. We bring together groups of people who value literature not just for its literary value, but who see its transformational power, both for the individual and society. And we believe that stories, poems, diaries, memoirs do, as Seamus Heaney suggests, function as bearers of value. We actively encourage writers, from the serious career-minded to people who write for pleasure, healing, personal growth, insight, or just to inform. And over the years, we have produced a broad range of writing, including poetry, history, memoir, and general prose. I said earlier I wanted to say something about community writing. For a long time now, there's been a casual dismissal of ordinary working people's writing as being irrelevant and of little literary merit. This is the most enormous put-down imaginable of so-called ordinary people. And unfortunately, so much brainwashing at this point of view has taken place that it is often repeated by ordinary people themselves. At the moment, the Limerick Arts Office has a policy of no support for publishing. Why, you may ask? Is it because writing as a means of self-expression is not considered of enough cultural value? Is it not highbrow enough for the guardians of culture? Have too many people easy access to pen and paper for it to be considered a cultural activity? Increasingly, ordinary people are discovering that they have a story to tell and that has significant value and can transform the individual and society. Valuing people's writing is another way of valuing them, and not just as consumers of products, but as a fundamental part of society. Today, we are launching a book which is an important social and cultural celebration. And by the way, it's the 65th book the Limerick Writers Centre has published under its community publishing initiative since 2008. Today is an occasion for us to come together and acknowledge the work of Jack Hogan, the author of Insula Sacra, and also to acknowledge the life and work of its subject matter, Sylvester O'Halloran, a remarkable man and someone well worth looking to today when it comes to discovering a philosophy of life which will make us more adequate when it comes to the trials and ordeals that beset us all. And I'm proud that the Limerick Writer Centre has played its part in letting us rediscover Sylvester O'Halloran through the work of Jack Hogan, and I believe that we owe Jack a debt of thanks for this. Let me also say that for everyone who buys and reads Jack's book, you are all potential authors yourselves. I would love to see you take up your pens and write, because the possession of a means of self-expression might mean at certain critical times in your life that it provides a cushion against and an ability to engage with a troubled world. This is how I believe, through the exercise of creativity, we can make our lives something positive. And as the writer Susan Sontag reminds us, books and writing are a way of being fully human. And it is this mission that the Limerick Writer Centre has set out on. And rest assured that we will not abandon the publishing of worthwhile books like Insula Sacra on good paper with good design, as we have done for this book, despite the lack of support from arts funding bodies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dominic. And now to officially launch Into the Sacra, please welcome Austin Reid.
Now, I'd first like to say, ladies and gentlemen, I soldiered with Jack for well in excess of 30 years as teachers in St. Munch's College. So I have got to know Jack very, very well during that period. And he was always very academically orientated. I have to say, I think his mastery, his command of the English language was outstanding. I think a lot of us in the school would kind of envy Jack for the way he could put passages and phrases together. Excellent, Jack. Now, Jack taught French and English in the school, and of course was very involved in cultural pursuits in the school as well. He supported debates there, plays, drama. In fact, there's great credit due to him out in the school for all the work he did in a voluntary way in that general area. Now, 16 years ago, Jack retired from teaching. I think it's very easy when one retires just to sit back and let the years roll by. But not Jack. For the last 10 years, he's devoted a greater part of his time to this magnificent novel that he's just produced. And I just wonder whether it's part of the atmosphere of St. Munch's College, Jack, whether it lends to creativity or not. The reason I say that, because another very close colleague of ours, of Jack and I, the late Pat Aylward. Pat Aylward died there a few months ago. Pat and Jack, they taught French together in the school. And Pat, in his later retirement years, went ahead and did a PhD for which he was awarded a doctorate. And I, subject to correction there here now, but I believe he was the oldest person in Ireland to be awarded a doctorate. So I think it's inspirational for guys that
became a painter.
Oh, exactly, yeah, exactly. Many talents. So I think it's very inspirational. I nearly feel like rushing home now, getting a pen and paper. Dominic said there's creativity in all of us. The only thing I don't know what I write about. But anyhow, now to undertake a task as Jack has done, writing any kind of a literary composition, it's a daunting undertaking. A huge amount of work required. And at times, it requires considerable patience, considerable dedication, and of course, discipline. Inevitably, in undertaking something like that, there will be frustrating interludes when one just wants to pack the whole thing and abandon it. But I have no doubt that the invaluable support that Jack would have got from Geraldine and her family, it would have really encouraged Jack to persevere and complete the work. Just for the benefit of some of you who may not be that familiar with Sylvester O'Halloran, about whom this novel centres on. He was a very skilled surgeon in the 18th century, and his skills and expertise did an awful amount to advance surgery and medicine, not just in Limerick, not just in Ireland, but throughout much of Europe as well. And he deserves full recognition in the annals of Limerick history, Sylvester Holland, for all he's done. Back in the 1980s, two great stalwarts of local history, two passionate people who were involved in local history, the late Jim Kemmy and the late Kevin Hannon, they campaigned vigorously for greater recognition in this city of ours for Sylvester Holland. And thanks to men like that, we have then this beautiful footbridge just behind us here, the Sylvester Holland footbridge that was opened in 1987, 30 years ago. And it's thanks to people like that to encourage. This footbridge goes across the Abbey River here and down to the potato market. Sylvester was raised on a farm just outside Limerick City. At the time, if you went over Thomond Bridge, heading north into Clare, you were immediately into Carradavin. And that was an area of all just farmland. And in a small household there, Sylvester's father leased land which they farmed. And he was very fortunate, Sylvester, to be able to obtain an education in 18th century Ireland, particularly being a Catholic. And I think he had such many diverse talents. He was really a Renaissance man, for want of a better term. I say that because not alone had he a tremendous interest in his surgical profession, but he was also well versed in the classics, having studied Latin and Greek in school. He composed many literary poetic compositions, and he wrote a number of histories of Ireland. So an extremely talented individual. Now this book before us, ladies and gentlemen, it's almost 400 pages in length. It's a historical novel. And I have to say, I am really amazed at the level of research that Jack has put into this. It's outstanding, Jack. I mean, I've read lots of history books, and you wouldn't see that level of research. Not only does Jack highlight the social and economic conditions prevailing in Ireland throughout the 18th century, but there are excellent descriptive passages there. Right from the very beginning, Jack describes a surgical procedure being carried out by Sylvester Holland, and Jack's knowledge and understanding of the medical jargon and terminology of the time was absolutely outstanding, Jack. Jack also shows an in-depth knowledge of local folklore, Celtic traditions in Ireland, mythology and so on. Comes across so well in the book. And he mentions about Irish scholars gathering in ring forts around Ireland to celebrate Celtic and Gaelic festivals. And these were major occasions for people in Ireland to have social type occasions together. There are a few beautiful, what I consider fabulous, simple descriptive phrases in the book. There's just one there in which young Sylvester, a 12-year-old, is travelling in a pony and trap with his mother, heading out from Limerick to Charleville, a long journey at the time. And Jack goes on to give a little description. I'd say it's very simple, a description of the weather at the time. And I quote, he says, "The clouds stacked up before us, high and white, with patches of blue beginning to shine, and an errant sun casting fleeting shadows across the landscape." I love that last bit. An errant sun casting fleeting shadows across the landscape. The Met Office and RT would love that, Jack. It really was excellent. I do think, ladies and gentlemen, I think that the essence of any good novel is an element of suspense and an element of expectation throughout. And this book has every bit of that. Right from the very, very beginning. How often you pick up a novel for 40, 50 pages that are difficult going. Right from the word go, you get engrossed in this book. It's a type of book. You can't leave it down. If you do leave it down for a minute, you're rushing to get back to it. It is a wonderful, wonderful production, Jack. And I suppose David Rice and the writers' meetings and so on, they all encourage you and bring out your wonderful literary talents. And as regards the Dominic and the publishing, they've done a beautiful job, I have to say, on the publishing of this. Again, it's something that really surprised me for a local publication. It is very well. The print is excellent. The quality of the paperwork is excellent as well now. It would make an ideal Christmas present for anyone who wants to get one. And I do think the name Sylvester O'Halloran now is certainly well engraved in the annals of Limerick history as a result of this book. I feel if people start reading this, Jack, Sylvester will become a household name in Limerick. Limerick certainly should be very, very proud of what you've done. It is a fabulous achievement, Jack. It's an inspiration to all of us. And again, I would just like to sincerely congratulate you on an excellent publication. Just to finish, ladies and gentlemen, one other thing that comes to mind. I remember, I think it was the late 60s, Jack was chairman of the ASTI, of the local the ASTI association here in Limerick. And we had a function in Cruises Hotel. And Jack, just to give you an idea of his talents, towards the end of the night, he did an impersonation of Elvis Presley. And his rendition of Jailhouse Rock brought the house down. So Jack, again, I just like again to congratulate you, Jack, and all those, and Jeremy for all your efforts there as well now. Well done, Jack. Thank you.
Thank you, Austin. And now to welcome to the microphone the author of Insula Sacra, Jack Hole.
Okay, I did Latin way back when Latin was still in schools. So maybe you're wondering why it's called Insula Sacra, the sacred island. This production of a Halloran was called Insula Sacra, with a long subtitle on the general utilities arising from some permanent foundation for the preservation of our ancient annals. Okay? He wanted ancient Irish history to be respected and recorded. And his publication, which was dedicated to what we now call the Royal Dublin Society, led to the establishment of the Royal Irish Academy, which preserves our ancient history. And they have publication. No, it wasn't a publication. The written, what do you call a written thing? No. In his handwriting, a manuscript of a Halloran's. Now, he was mainly a surgeon, and he published in, I think it was 1770, description of cutting off limbs. Amputation. I was going to call it emancipation. Which had a prologue recommending the establishment of a surgeons' college in Ireland, because the only college which existed then was Trinity College, and doctors could be educated there, but not surgeons. This writing of a Halloran led to the establishment of the Royal College of Surgeons. Did you know that, Mr.
Oh, yes, I did, yeah.
Yeah. The Royal College of Surgeons is a fantastic establishment. Anyway, I'd like to thank both Dominic and Austin for their praise. Austin's particularly, because did you read the book in the meantime? In the last week, I've been trying to read it since I got a copy, and I'm very slow at reading and writing anymore due to my confinement to home and the lack of social gatherings, you know. Anyway, Austin fanaticized me about, he actually quoted, you know, an errant son, was it? Is that S-O-N or S-U-N? Okay. Austin also mentioned that O'Halloran is remembered by a footbridge on the Abbey. Also, somebody came here from UL to buy the book, and UL holds every year for the last 25 years a symposium named after Sylvester O'Halloran, and it brings surgeons and medics from all over the world. When I contacted them prior to the publication, they asked for 200 flyers about the book. I don't see 200 doctors in here, but I'm terrifically surprised by the number of people and immensely grateful to you all for coming. Now, I think Sylvester O'Halloran deserves more than a footbridge for recognition, even though the medical men congregate every year in UL, and he has a library for graduates in our big hospital, the regional, named after him also. He should have a statue put on Merchant's Quay. You know, we have statues all over the city, but none of him. I say that to the joint Limerick and County Council. Now, this has been a wonderful morning or afternoon for me and Geraldine, because we've met people we haven't met for years. And I thank you for coming, and I hope you enjoy the book. And as Austin said, it makes a fantastic Christmas present. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jack. And for anybody who hasn't picked up a copy yet, there are plenty available here, and Jack will be happy to sign copies for anybody who'd like them. As said, they might make a fantastic Christmas present. Thank you all.